This episode of Bussin' with the Boys, is presented by Barstool Sports. Is that the room? Is that the green light pod room, dude?
It's my office, which happens to be green, because that's my favorite color.
Is that why it's called the green light pod?
I mean, sort of. It's because I didn't want to call it like the Chris Long pod, and I just was like,
The Chris Long show.
But also, like, green light means like we'll talk about whatever. So, there's a little bit.
Is that what that means? Is it like a psychology thing?
No, it's not a psychology thing. It's like the way I looked at it is, pick an ambiguous name because I don't want to be like the Third and Long show. Like, I want something that people are like, why is it called that? I would rather do that than just be really like dorky and overt with my shit, like a football meatball.
No, that's smart.
Yeah.
So right before we got on here, This dude Taylor hits the group chat and says, "My power's out."
Hey, the power's out?
Yeah, he said his power went out. He FaceTimes me. He's like, I don't know, man. Something with my power. Like, it's like flickering. So last week in Nashville, like over 100,000 people were without power.
Was that because of like a tornado?
No, so it's crazy because
Nashville. Look at your whiteboard.
Enduring it. You like that? Nashville's been enduring it, dude. Like 2 months ago was like a tornado, which hit us pretty bad. Obviously the pandemic. But last week there was just a thunderstorm, and it took out over 100,000 people with power. He was part of it, but everything got figured out. But I guess today, I don't.
Well, I'm good. If you need me to come back in a couple minutes, that's fine. And if you need me to wait around or you want to, like, I don't care. I'm like,
dude, we're chatting. While I'm running this thing, I told Taylor, I was like, hopefully your power comes on because then you can just crash in the pod.
You tell Taylor he just fucking hates me. That's all.
I'm gonna get into I'm gonna get into all your
it's all good
endeavors because I'm super curious about all that stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting going it alone.
Yeah, dude, I bet. I can only imagine. Like, I do the stuff I feel like on my own sometimes. Shout out Taylor.
Yeah,
but it's different. It's a weird vibe because no one cares about it like you do, and you got to kind of find all these pivots on your own. Like, no one's coming to save me. Like, I got to figure this out.
Yeah, it's not like you can work harder and make people care what you're saying. You either just kind of have to slowly build up an audience or not.
Yeah, no doubt. I was listening to your Green Light Pod. For those that don't know, Chris Long has a phenomenal podcast. He runs it way better than any athlete has out there. It's called the Green Light Podcast. Man. You can go and subscribe to it. I was listening to your most recent one. And I was telling you earlier how all the topics I had of like, let's talk about The Last Dance because, everybody's so intrigued with Michael Jordan and an athlete, his mindset, athlete's mindset. And some stuff you kind of watch and you kind of sit back and see everybody tweeting and talking about it. And they're talking like it's some anomaly that somebody thinks that way or is that competitive.
Right.
And I was talking with my strength coach earlier, and it's just like, everybody – there's so many athletes who are like competitive in that nature. Like, we were playing spike ball last Saturday and Taylor and I were ready to like hit each other, take each other out.
Like assault each other in the backyard.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I'm going to run through you. And it's like, all right, well, I hope you do it. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, that's a big dude, but your prideful self's like, yeah, fuck you, bro. Like, go ahead. But I find it so interesting because people think like that stuff doesn't necessarily happen and then they see it happen on The Last Dance, and then they're like, that's why he's the greatest. It's like, athletes are
I think this exposes a lot of people's, and this is natural. Like, if I was watching a police movie or like a movie about another profession where there's camaraderie, teamwork, obviously the stakes are different. I'm not comparing football to law enforcement or the military, any of that stuff. I'm not. But I am saying that, like, anytime there's an inside look at a documentary or a movie and there's outsiders looking at it, they're going to take certain things that are unremarkable and make them big deals. And I think with Jordan, to your point, it's not that he was so competitive that he would damn near kill to win. I think if anybody had a winning problem, it was Jordan, like a problem winner, like problem gamblers. He's like a problem winner. He's close to borderline of stars, at least, that are well documented. But to your point, there's a ton of guys who are really competitive, but they just weren't as good as Jordan. So it's not as well documented. And also, like, it's easy to tell that story, and we should hear it. It's awesome because he's the GOAT, to me at least. I don't know if he's the best player of all time, but there's two different conversations.
Yeah. Don't. We're talking about The Last Dance. We can't use the L word right now because
Yeah. I'm not going to
kinda,
use it.
we won't
I don't
drop
want
the
to go
L
down
word.
that road because it's just it's so pointless. But like, I just think the reason you get to see it, and it's a real blessing that they had all this tape. Thank God for the people that unearthed this stuff and that he agreed to do it, because the pandemic, it has saved us from a sports fan
No doubt.
perspective. But like, I just don't think people understand there's plenty of guys who just aren't as good as him that are that competitive. But he definitely was very competitive. And what the craziest part to me was not his just general competitiveness, but like his self-motivation style, like making shit up. The LeBradford James thing. Like, he just made that up out of thin air. Like, you're a little bit psychotic to do that. A little bit.
Yeah, especially over like, hey, good game. Like, that's psychotic.
Yeah, well, and then he made it up.
Could you imagine somebody just saying, hey, Chris, good game? And you're like, all right, motherfucker.
Well, he
like,
made it up. He
made it that's all I'm saying.
So like, not only was it a lie, but it was also the fact that, you know, the lie was so innocuous to most people. Be like, hey, good game. What the fuck do you mean good game? Like, that's insane. I mean, it was like,
hey, hang on. What's innocuous? Like, this is a real football player.
Innocuous would be like, it's not a big deal. Like, it's just a comment in passing. Unless I just butchered the word, you're making me second guess it. But
it's all right. I believe
innocuous
right
means
now.
Not a big deal. So like, it's fucking like somebody should. How many times you've been told, "Hey, good game," even after somebody wore you out? Like, if a tackle blocked me all day and said, "Hey, nice game," depending on the tone, it's probably not a big deal. But to Mike, he not only made that exchange up, but that was the exchange. And like, what's the point of telling people that if you're the one you're trying to motivate? So it's insane to me. And then on top of that, it was like George Karl. It was BJ Armstrong, not George Karl. It was it was George Karl pissed him off before the finals. Like, all these guys, he found motivations to win. And like, spin zone here, if Jordan could do that every game, why didn't he do it more? Make up some shit and then just go off for 37 in the first half.
No doubt. And they make it, the documentary paints the picture so, I guess I'm going to use the word cool, because he's sitting there and they're talking about it. He's like swinging this like bat and has a cigar, has stogie in his mouth. You're kind of sitting there as an athlete like, yo, these dudes got to do whatever they want back then.
They were cool as fuck.
I felt like, anyway.
I mean, not just that. I mean, you mentioned the stogie. I mean, he was talking about people ripping cigs in the 80s. And that's absolutely true. It's true in the NFL. My pops told me about guys that used to, you know, be ripping heaters at halftime, and that was fairly normal. I mean, it was just a different era, man. And like, I'm just really glad they had this footage, because we didn't have this in-depth access. And you could have this kind of in-depth access nowadays in 2020 for like the fourth corner on an NFL team, because he has his own production company. And he's like, oh, I'm just working on my YouTube channel. Like,
you know,
the fourth corner on an NFL team has as much banked content as Jordan did back in the day.
Right.
But, you know, the difference is, and Jordan's agent talked about this, is like, every time we use Jordan's name, his brand is diminished. So it's like inflation for his brand. So he saved it up, and it's just like, we were starved for it. But he controls the production process here. So like, when he anchors this thing and under promises, over delivers, and he's like, people are going to hate me, he knows people are going to hate him. He knows people are going to like him. What he's comfortable sharing, he's going to share. I want to know what was in the tapes that he didn't let to the light of day. Yeah. That's what the fuck I want to know.
Same, dude. Because you know, those dudes who are carrying around the camera, they probably saw some shit and heard some stories that's like, yeah, we're not going to be able to use that.
Even the footage, I mean, like, just vaulted. They had a separate room for it, I think. You know, and the only person who had like a key was Jordan. I don't know. I heard this. And, you know, how much in there was footage that he was just like, no. I want to know the stuff they argued over. The producer would be like, probably, hey, man, we could use this. I promise this won't make you look bad, et cetera, et cetera. Because you're talking about one of the most brand conscious athletes of all time. And ironically, he protected his brand to elevate the brands of athletes, is what he did by protecting his brand. And now guys can do everything, like YouTube Live. Like, look at how much shit, and this is the only time I'll use LeBron in this documentary, but look at LeBron's brand, which is really well done. And he focuses on a lot. Jordan put the same energy in it in a protective way. And he paved the way for guys like LeBron to just do whatever every week. Barbershop, IG Live, Taco Tuesday. Like, Jordan didn't do this stuff. There wasn't a medium for it. I don't know if he would have, but I honestly think, getting to know him a little bit more through his documentary, he would have been just the same way. I think he'd be like protective brand dude, honestly, now.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, because everybody who sat down to do these interviews, like they're able to, chop and take bits and pieces of them, but you're almost curious what conversations were really happening on the camera when they were talking about his leadership style and if he was an asshole, because, they can kind of show smirks and reactions and then maybe a couple sentences, but then you cut to something else.
Yeah. That's why I think that there's some of this stuff, damn near every player in this thing that's a supporting actor, so to speak, in this whole thing has come out with a little bit of embarrassment, got it dusted up a little bit by Jordan. Like he didn't really take a shot at Charles. He was mad he was the MVP that year, but that's a pretty normal comment for somebody who's super competitive. I think he showed respect there. He took a shot at Gary, kind of laughed at him, the glove last week. And I thought that was a little unfair because, Gary did. Jordan was more sporadic as far as the shooting percentage towards the end of that series against the Sonics. And Gary did do a good job. I mean, that's it's objectively true. And for them to set Gary up like that, they were probably leading Gary down the road of, and you did a pretty good job against Michael. You did it, and Gary's starting to feel himself, and he's interviewing, he's getting hyped because he's I shut Michael down a little bit. He was 30% shooting late in the series, and then they lead him right into the trap. And Jordan knows exactly what he's going to say. He's controlling the production. So I think it's a little bit unfair from that standpoint. Scotty probably got burned a little bit with saying I would have done it over again, because I think they probably took it out of context a little bit, that he was saying how some people say, even if I fuck up, I don't change anything in my life. I think that's what he meant, and he didn't really get it out well, and also they took it out of context. So it's tricky. If you're going to be in a Jordan documentary, you're not going to be the hero.
Yeah, no doubt. What are your thoughts? What was your thoughts on his leadership style? I know when I was listening to your pod, there's 1,000 different ways to skin a cat. So everybody's trying to get a job done, which is win. You've been on Super Bowl teams. You've been around all these different cultures. What did you take away from the way guys were about his leadership style?
I've been around great players, man. I've been around a lot of them. And as you know, you probably have too. I'm very lucky to play with guys like Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, Torrey Holt, Steven Jackson. I'm going on a list of guys I think might be in the Hall of Fame.
You played with Torrey Holt?
Yep, right. That's how old I am.
Hey, let's go. That's a documentary.
I played with a few guys at the beginning of my career in St. Louis that make me look really old. Trent Green, Dante Hall, Orlando Pace. How about trotting out for training camp and pissing Orlando Pace off, trying to win in one-on-one pass rush, and he's just toying with you. I would say everybody has a different leadership style, and the key is be you, man. And for Jordan, I think that was very authentically him. That's what I like about him, is he's unapologetically him. I don't think anything is a front with him. I don't think he's saying any of this to get attention. This is just him, and this fit him. So I think it's funny. We talk about him being hated. I don't hate him. I like him more because he's unapologetically an asshole. You ask the guys that play with him, it depends on who you ask. I think Wennington talked about him testing guys and seeing if they back down or not. You talked about the Kerr fight. Okay, the Wennington point, that happens in the NFL all the time. The Kerr fight. How many fights have you seen in fucking practice? I've seen way worse than Steve Kerr getting punched in the fucking eye. The Scott Burrell thing. Everybody was like, oh, that's so mean. He was calling Scott Burrell a hoe 46 times. I've heard so much worse. That's your daily stretch line. By the way, I think he probably loves Scott Burrell. I think they hit the streets together. I think they gambled together, hung out. And I think that that's what people don't understand that aren't athletes and understand team dynamic. And I think every guy has a different dynamic with their teammates, relationships, and you got to do what fits your personality. That's the way I think about it. And also, who's going to punch Jordan in the face? Everybody's like, Steve Kerr needs to punch Jordan in the face. You punch Jordan in the face, that's like hitting a quarterback in training camp, and you're on, rookie mini camp.
Getting close to his arm and all that stuff.
You're on Spirit Airlines, motherfucker. You're out of here. So that's who's going to take a swing at Jordan?
One time when I was a rookie, I was on practice squad, and I almost block on accident because you kind of get thrown into the punter, and I almost take out the punter, which is a huge no, you know what I mean? Because you only got one punter on the team. We're in film, and man, what was his name? Coach Burns, Keith Burns, man. And he's like, hey, who's 46? And I'm like, oh man, he's like, hey man, you gonna fuck around and get a good player hurt, we're gonna send your ass back home.
Yeah.
I'm just
exactly. That's if I had $1 for every time I heard, a rookie threatened to get bought a plane ticket home because they ran into or got close. Because I'm in a D-line room, and there's nobody that's grinding harder than rookie linemen. with
bro,
pads,
yes.
without pads, and O linemen throw rookie. O linemen get beat. They hip toss people back into the quarterback. Guys instinctively, and I've done this before. You win a pass rush, you kind of hold your arm up to show you had the sack, or you reach for the ball because that's kind of what you do. And young guys, they're just not that fucking smart, and they're extremely motivated. And everybody has a practice speed. And if you're a 10-year vet, you probably hate the rookie, and vice versa.
No
But
doubt.
yeah, I mean, like, you're not going to punch Jordan in the face. So I think it depends on who you ask. Like, Phil Jackson and Tex Winter, they were the guys, the triangle offense guys, that took over in the early '90s. And if you ask Tex, he thought that Jordan, he said in a book, he was quoted as saying that Jordan definitely rode his teammates too hard. But then if you ask Phil Jackson, he said like that fight was a turning point with Kerr. So I think it just depends. And I love his answer of, I wouldn't make my teammates do anything that I wouldn't do, because that's the number one thing I want to look for in a leader. Do you lead by example?
Yeah, and at the end of that episode, he's like crying, which I think was powerful. It's like, that you said it earlier, like that's authentically him. Like he only knew it. He only knew how to do it that way.
Yeah.
He wanted them to experience winning like he was experiencing it.
I love that sequence. That sequence made episode 7 my favorite to this point. It was obviously the most personal and raw. And you talk about a guy who's cruised through narrating everything, including the death of his father, and that choked him up. And I wonder if it's just that he looks back and he's like, I wish I could have been nicer to people. Like I did miss out on some relationships, that sort of thing. Because I think there's an element of MJ being like a fucking armchair psychologist where he does have trouble connecting with people. Like you could tell, like in the locker room, like back and forth with guys, like you can tell when guys are laughing at jokes and they're just kind of like, yeah, you're Michael Jordan. I don't want to get cut. I got to like, we don't talk a lot. The camera's here, like that sort of thing. I'm not saying he was a bad teammate. I'm just saying like, it's hard for guys to relate to somebody who's isolated himself that much because he wants to be so great and is so great. And so
Right.
I think that he had trouble relating at times. I honestly do. But I think it was authentically him. And I think it kind of tore him up, or he just missed busting people's asses. And that's what he was crying about when he delivered that line. If you don't want to play like that, don't play like that. Break.
Right. Who are some of the leaders you think about throughout your career that you played with? And you might think of more when you were younger in your career than you did later. But what are some things and qualities and guys that you would shout out that you took a lot from?
Well, there's a difference in leadership and like mentorship. I had a number of mentors, like guys that weren't necessarily great team leaders, but they were guys that I needed to bring me along as a young player, one-on-one. I think that's leadership too. But like in the broader sense, you think of leadership, it's team captain type shit. But early in my career, a guy like James Hall, okay, like you know how this is. I'm coming in as a high draft pick. You've seen this with guys like they're playing earlier than they should. There's a Grizzly veteran who's still fucking good. You're on a bad team. It's dysfunctional. I come in. I shouldn't have been starting my first year in front of James Hall. He was a 50, 60 sack career guy, played in Detroit, real grumpy. Guy didn't talk to me damn near the whole first year. I was afraid to ask him questions. I'd kind of pushed up on his job, and I didn't deserve it yet. Like fast forward 3 years into my career, he's the single most impactful veteran I had, because once I earned his respect, we became best friends. We climbed Killy together. He's who I went with the first time. He came to my wedding. We talked the other night for 30 minutes on the phone. Like we did not talk for a whole year, but that was leadership in an individual, setting, because he knew what buttons he had to push with me. And all of a sudden, he's not answering my questions, or he's ignoring me flat out at the locker. I'm following him into the film room. I'm like, hey, what do I do here? What do I do here? And I just annoyed him and worked my ass off until he respected me. Now, leadership, I would say, I'll just pick 2 Patriots, offense and defense. Dante Hightower, one of the best leaders I've ever been around. Not only a badass football player, criminally underrated, but he was a guy that related to everybody in the locker room. I think relatability is huge. As you know, like if you can go to any locker and talk to the guys in the locker room authentically, you're a fucking candidate to be a leader, a gel guy, a glue guy. He was that guy, but he was also a guy who could motherfuck you. And he was usually in the right place, so he wasn't being a hypocrite. And I've seen him cuss people out. I love the standard he set. Also, Matt Slater. Matt Slater is one of the greatest people I've ever played with, one of the best leaders I've ever played with. And on a team with big names, Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, that sort of thing. Like those 2 guys were leaders to me.
And he's been there like the whole time.
Yeah. And Slate, under the radar, is absolutely integral to that team. And he has compassion. He's that type of guy. So everybody's got a different type of leadership. And those two guys just stood out to me late in my career.
Well, I mean, arguably in our profession, Tom Brady is arguably the GOAT in the NFL.
Yep.
And you have, we're witnessing this documentary of the GOAT, debatable, arguable in NBA. What would you say differences are with Tom and Michael Jordan?
Big difference. Tom, you see the fiery Tom on the sideline. And like I said, everybody's different. Tom to me is the GOAT as far as a quarterback is concerned. And when you're the head of the snake, as they say, you are, front of the line. If you're the GOAT quarterback, you're the GOAT football player, in my opinion. And, he was humble. He was down to earth. Everybody on TV sees him cussing people out, throwing the tablet, that type of shit. You don't want to. And I was never a receiver, so I never got that shit. Like, he was always nice to me because I was a D lineman. There was nothing he could cuss me out about. But I just thought Tom was the most everyman GOAT I ever played with. Like, treated everybody in the building with respect. Introduced himself to everybody. I know I've told this story before, and some people are like, "What's the big deal? He introduced himself to you." I'm like, "Motherfucker, when I walk in on my first day and Tom Brady walks up to me and shakes my hand and he's like, 'I'm Tom Brady,' and I'm like, 'I know.'" Like, that's a little thing, but that was emblematic of what he did every day. And, he knew when to turn it on, when to be an asshole, when not to be an asshole. I think Jordan, from what I understand, and this was a psychological thing in 7 and 8, he was damn near like the player and the coach. He was Bill Belichick and Tom Brady at the same time. And when you talk to Steve Kerr says he played with, knowing Tim Duncan, okay, you're playing with Tim Duncan. The other leaders that he knows of in the NBA, you played with him, and it felt like you played with and for Michael Jordan. So I think that honestly, that baseball break for him was partially a big deal because he didn't have to be a coach and a player, and he could get led. Like, when was the last time Michael Jordan got led? And so I think that was a nice break for him. I think, Tom and Mike, it's just different. 53 guys on the team, 5 guys, or 12, 13 guys on the team, whatever,
sure.
NBA. But they're both the GOAT.
Yeah. Well, shifting a little bit, you're retired now.
Yeah.
What is life like being retired? How you play? What, 11 years?
11 years. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, what is life like for you now?
It's awesome. It's been one of the best years of my life. I think a lot of it has to do with me going out in a way that I was comfortable with, on my terms, and going out still playing well. So while it's still sometimes I miss it, and there's times where that competitor in me pokes his head out, and I'm watching a game and I'm like, I can make that fucking play. Are you kidding me? Like, I could still do that.
You still feel like you can go out there and make some plays.
Yeah, but also it's nice to say, you know what, I'd rather have a little bit in the tank than nothing. And I can say that because when you have nothing in the tank as a football player, it's not just effort, it's your livelihood. And I'm healthy. I can play with my kids. My dad played 13 years in the league in the old CBA days. I know what that looks like. I don't want to look like that when I'm 60. Not in the face. My man looks flawless, but
yeah,
he looks like Benjamin Button, man. but you see him try to do an external row with a band. I mean, like, my man is jacked up, and I didn't want to be like that. So this has been the best year of my life, damn near. I mean, I've been under the gun.
Really?
Any NFL football player has been under the gun for, if you play 11 years in the league. And in high school, I was working towards a scholarship. I was lifting after practice. I was staying at the facility till 8 p.m. Like, I've been working towards this my whole life. So it's 20 years of being under the gun. It feels great to be out.
You mentioned like being that extra, that hard worker growing up. When you were growing up in a family like you have your younger brother, he's a stud. Your mom is a stud too. Wasn't she a tennis player?
Yeah, she was good. She was a good athlete, good swimmer. She still plays some tennis, and then my wife and her like have this rivalry now. So, yeah. It's great.
Did you ever feel like that expectation? I'm sure you've been asked it a lot, but did you ever feel those expectations? Maybe not specifically from your family, because maybe your dad just gets it. But like those coaches and friends and people just growing up thinking like, I know everyone expects me to be the next Howie Long.
Yeah, no, it's tough because, like you mentioned, my dad actually wasn't some like varsity blues dad.
Right.
He was like very he didn't push me towards football. In fact, like he was the one who was more of an anchor for my ego. I mean, he was like, you'd be lucky, maybe you could get a D1 offer and, maybe you're athletic enough to play D-line, but I would work on your guard sets. He still says he didn't say that shit. But I mean, like, he didn't make it seem like a big deal that he was my dad. And he also tried to raise me the way, he would want to be raised, which is with humility and just work ethic. Whatever you do, you excel at that. It doesn't have to be football, but it turned out to be football. And I'd say if you're taking that path, certainly high draft pick, 4-star recruit coming out. There's a lot of ways that those guys skip to the front of the line. But also I look at some guys who thumb their nose at guys who had backgrounds like this or whatever. There's a flip side to that coin, and that flip side is pressure. I ask those guys, you ever walk in a room and everybody dislikes you and has a preconceived notion about you?
That's what I was already thinking. Is like that. I was already thinking about that rookie year when you were talking about you took your boy's job, and I can only assume what your probably image was right when you walked in that building. Like, oh,
yeah, I mean, it's not only you're not only a high draft pick. Everybody assumes that you hit the genetic lottery. Which, by the way, I'm the third best athlete in my family, maybe fourth. And also,
it's a solid family though. I would be one of those haters. Yeah. I'd be like, yo, Chris Long, he's got the genetic, dude.
Yeah,
as an undrafted guy, you're salty.
Here's the thing about fucking genetics. What about all the other guys in the league? Do they have shitty genetics? And they're all going to pass genetics down to kids and a generation later, and people are going to be saying that about their kids. So did genetics change from their generation to the next? Like, I think, and as my son probably just fell down or some shit. Hold on.
We were talking about the genetics, and my rebuttal was going to be whoever's perceived to be better than me, then that means they just have better genetics than me.
Well, yeah, I could say that too. Like, this from playing in the NFL. Like, listen, I'm not bullshitting you. There were very few teams where I was a top 10 athlete on the team. And that's the funny thing is when you're Howie Long's son, everybody assumes you could just hit the lotto. My dad's more athletic than me. I had to work for everything I had. And, there's some people you never convince that, and that's fine. But those are people who are sideline people. And there are also people that don't understand that when you're marked like that, a great career in the NFL for 11 years, 2 Super Bowls, 70 sacks, all that shit, like team captain. That's a dream for everybody else. But you still have these nobodies that are like on the sideline, like, you never be your dad. I'm like, well, you never be me. Like, who gives a fuck?
Oh, let's go.
Like, you're not me and I'm not him. And really, it doesn't matter. And I'm tougher than you because I had to deal with that pressure my whole life. And so that was like a skin of armor for me. Or if I get in the league and people are looking at me like this dude's probably soft or whatever, like that made me tougher. And you didn't have that. And I did. Okay, maybe you're tougher in a lot of other ways, but I had that and you didn't.
Yo, you just fired me the fuck up, Chris. Hey, I was getting up in my seat and everything. I was like, oh, okay.
You want to play? Let's get to play, dude. Yeah. 2020, come back.
Where was I going with that? You legit had me fired up for a moment.
Because I like to talk shit, okay? Because I had to talk a lot of shit, and this is the thing is like, when you're
I can tell you had to talk a lot of shit. It seems like you've been in this conversation plenty of times. Like, I didn't even go there, and you just like, yo, if somebody wants to fucking talk shit, they're a sideliner, bro.
You know how much crazy shit I've heard over that? Like, it's insane, like the way people twist certain things based on that. So, like, yeah, is it awesome? It's awesome to have a dad that played. He understands the game. He understands what I'm going through. That's great. And also football gave him, his kids a life that he never had. Like, he grew up in Charlestown with not a lot, and he had, family members that helped him through. But it wasn't, wasn't an easy childhood. Right. For me, I got that from football. So I would never resent my pop's career. In fact, I love it. My dad is like my best friend. So, there's people that are like, is it annoying? Whatever. I'm like, nah, not really. I've been extremely blessed.
Yeah, no doubt, man. All those accolades you mentioned earlier that you have accomplished in the NFL, the Waterboy organization, being host of Greenlight Pod. What is your favorite stat line of all of those accolades? What would you say you're most proud of?
Football wise, I mean, like, listen, podcasting's hard, and you know this too. I mean, it's really hard. So this is sometimes I'm more proud of a good pod than I was a good game.
Dude, doesn't it hype you up, man?
You're like, I can do this.
I got when we got our first like small little sponsorship check, I wrote about this in one of my blogs. I was like, I was so fired up. I felt like I was getting a game check because we had earned that. Like we had created it. Like we did it. We made it to this little fucking check, dude.
And you're entering a world of very smart people that would have called you a meathead in school. So I mean, like, I guess on the field it would be, I had a 4-year stretch that was really good in St. Louis. 40 sacks in 4 years, and I'm proud of that because there weren't a lot of guys that do 40 in 4 years. I mean, there were some good rushers that did that, but for a while there, I had a really good run individually and on bad teams too. So that was overcoming adversity and that sort of thing. Obviously the team stuff for me is being lucky enough to be a part of 2 Super Bowl teams. There's a lot of luck involved in that. You got to choose the right place in free agency, etc. And a lot has to go right for you to be on a team. That's why I don't like judging people on Super Bowls. That's why for me, I almost sometimes when I resent the fact that, I had a career that was really productive and people will be like, Super Bowl champion. There he is. I'm like,
hello.
Hey, sir.
Can you guys hear me?
Hey, the boy.
I'm in this thing. Damn it, Chris. I'm having a huge issue with these Zoom podcasts because every fucking guy we have on this thing, it's always one handsome son of a bitch that makes us look ugly as shit. And here you are again. Last week was Chase Rice and now you. God damn.
Chase Rice. The people say we're twins.
Really?
Yes, dude.
That would be a deadly duo. That would be an absolutely terrifying duo.
He played at UNC. You probably talked about all this.
Yeah, he did. And I tell you what he said too, and I know you can attest to this, is when people say, oh, I played here or I played there, I did this and that and the other. I could have gone to the NFL. However, injury. However, coach didn't like me. So we had a little soiree, a little qualm with him about that. I'm not sure.
Did he do it? Did he pull that card?
He said that he brought up the fact that he did get injured. He had a big season. He was in front of Zach Brown, who did end up going to the NFL. So you got to respect that.
Yo, you know Zach Brown.
I know stories. I know he found his way out of Philly in the most spectacular fashion.
In the best fucking way, dude.
He just got there. He pissed somebody off, and then they got torched by said somebody, and then he was gone.
That's so funny, dude. That's such a Zach Brown thing. Zach Brown, shout out to people that just do whatever the hell they want.
Oh, yeah.
Frank Sinatra, My Way. You know what? If you live by that song, good for you, man. Good for you. You can't all be sellouts.
You're the master of your universe, man. And like I envy those people. Like I'd like to think I got a solid I got more than a pinch. Like they put a pinch of salt in a recipe. I got more than a pinch of don't give a fuck. But Zach Brown got like a tablespoon.
Yeah, no, that was the main course.
Mm-hmm.
No question. You definitely did, but that's a good thing, man. People don't Marilyn Monroe said no one ever gets remembered following the rules. Yeah. So I mean, that's a big thing. I'm all about that.
It's boring.
I respect the shit out of that, dude. But anyway, going back to Chase Rice real quick. Yeah, he said,
"Hey, Chris, just know the boy's on, and your podcast is over, dude. We're hosting Taylor now. Hey, this is Greenlight Podcast featuring co-host Will Compton, and our guest is Taylor Lewan."
I didn't want to go on this podcast, start talking about Chase Rice, coulda, woulda, shoulda type of attitude, and not say that I believe he could have actually made it in the NFL. I was just giving him a hard time. He's a boy. Got to respect him. We're still going out to the ranch.
Athletic dude, good dude. Man, his concerts, the ladies love him.
Oh, no question.
He told us a story on The Bachelor, too. When he was on The Bachelor, he told us the whole spiel, dude.
Oh, yeah. He's got a square jaw, man. He's got a jaw that can cut glass. And that's coming from somebody with a sizable mandible.
I tell you what, dude, jealousy.
Yeah, but you got them cat eyes, boy.
Hey, I got them eyes. That's about it. From here, hey, I'm the prettiest woman in the world from here to here, baby. From there to there, every girl envies this shit. After that, it's like small piece, no jawline, offensive lineman. Life's a little tough out here for the boy.
Yeah, you linemen get really pigeonholed on the I think every big white lineman that walks in the room, everybody assumes he has a small piece, and I feel guys.
Just gonna earn it, dude. You know, you don't just come up with those stereotypes. You know what I mean? Like
where there's smoke, there's fire.
There's some data behind it, dude.
Hey, 3 inches
like
of
O-lineman, that's who I'm standing by in the shower if I'm going in, dude. It's an O-lineman.
I feel like you guys went overboard with the shower talk once before, and Batesy got mad at you. Darren Bates.
Yeah. We talked about we were on a meat peeking segment there for a second.
Legend.
Dude, DB is such a legend, bro. Like when that came about, I walked up to him on the sideline. I was just because me and him, like we just had that funny little unique
I can see
friendship
you
since
guys
we were like the
laughing
backups in the linebacker room.
Yeah.
And his locker was right next to mine with this little boom box and everything. And I would walk up, I was like, "Hey, DB, how many of these guys you think would admit to me peeking in the shower?" Like, man, hey, Comp, you wild, boy. He's about DB, about 60, about 60%.
He's got a tablespoon of Memphis in him, man. He's a Memphis dude. I love that guy. So.
Hey, you want to make cooking kick, man? You got tablespoons and teaspoons everywhere.
I am because my son's been baking all day.
You've been baking.
My son's been making cookies all day, bro. You can only make cookies so many times during the pandemic and act like we didn't do it last week. But I don't mind until I'm 8 o'clock at night wandering around the fucking pantry like I'm lost and I don't have a roadmap. And I keep walking back in and walking back in. Hey, let me just say this. Don't get high in the kitchen. If you eat an edible, don't do your work at night in the kitchen. Go upstairs because you'll be too lazy to walk downstairs. It's the biggest life hack in the world. You only eat dessert if you want to eat dessert. You make that decision.
No question.
Oh, unfortunately, I make that decision, that mistake. I've made it several times in the quarantine world. It doesn't matter how lazy I am. Right when we'll get done playing Risk, I'll walk right on downstairs, dude. About what do we got in here, boys? Who's getting destroyed tonight?
Oh yeah.
What's an edible? What are you guys talking about?
Yeah, he can't.
Nothing that you know about yet.
Yeah,
our young son.
That devil's lettuce everyone's talking about? That's all the new rage? Is that what everyone's talking about?
Yeah, the devil's lettuce. You got a little cherub down there.
Hey, I'm in the Bible Belt, baby. Whoa.
Baby.
I love it, dude. Okay, so just going on that a little bit, I think right after you retired, one of your first comments you made was something about marijuana. Did you guys already talk about this?
No, we didn't.
No, dude, I'm just laughing because you just came in, and I'm gonna be honest. Like Chris, this is the best Taylor Lewan we've gotten because it's always been on the phone. It's blurry. There's no microphone. It's the phone. Like I'm stoked and proud right now because he sounds like a pro. He's holding that marker, moving it around. He's like, all right, let's go into that a little bit.
Yeah, after Sharpie. Shout out Sharpie. We're looking for sponsors every single day, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, you know why it's blank back here, Chris?
Why?
A lot of room, a lot of real estate to sell our soul,
There
baby.
we go.
That devil's lettuce. You want to put a big leaf up here? If you just pay the bucks. That's all we need.
Hey, hashtag goals. You can write all your hashtag goals and write a fake workout plan and put it online like everybody else.
No question. Or you can put fake stuff like fake list champion.
I got in trouble. Not in trouble because I get in trouble. I think here's the problem. Nashville's not a huge football market. It's a great football market, but it's not a national market where if you say something, it's going to hit the fan. For 8 years in St. Louis, we were bad, and nobody was watching us outside St. Louis. So, there were people that when I got to New England and Philly, they were like, "Who is this guy? Like, I've never seen him play football before. I've been in the league a damn decade." Okay, so I would never get in trouble for saying anything. So I got conditioned to saying whatever the fuck I want. I go on Dan Patrick, and I'm retired, and I also assume people, my musical taste, some of my tweets late at night, some of the subject matter I like to cover. I assume people know that, I like the medicine. And Dan Patrick asked me something about marijuana, and I'm like, it's not a big deal. Like, I have my fair share. Like, on to the next point. Are people that naive?
Right.
I think it's at the point right now in the world, not the world, the United States, where it's such a new thing. My wife, she's from British Columbia. In British Columbia, smoking marijuana is like having a beer. It's like, hey, we're having a hoot, change a couple channels. Not trying to rewire the whole system, but it's kind of like the thing that's like their deal up there. So my wife comes down and it's everywhere. People are saying smoking, and everyone's like, "Oh, secretive." My wife's like, "I don't understand why everyone's so weirded out. Like that's a thing." And it's crazy the bubble we live in America, like what is so taboo and what's not.
Well, it's funny. There's some people that there's a whole host of people for reasons that we won't get into on this pod that anything I say or do, they don't like. Mm-hmm. And their response was very quickly like, "Yeah, dude, we get it. You smoke." Like dude with, bonging a beer in his profile picture. I'm like, okay, dude, what you're doing is a little bit more extreme than what I'm doing. I'm hitting my pen and drifting off to sleep or watching a funny movie. You're going out and getting beat up at a bar or, ruining your marriage because you're blackout drunk. Like, I like to drink. I still drink. I haven't drank a lot in quarantine. I still like getting fucked up, hanging out with my buddies, an excuse to drink beer. I love it, but I bring my pen with me. It's just what I do is not a problem. It's not harming anybody else. And what a lot of guys in the league do is not a problem. It's not harming anybody else. And I think it's good that in the new CBA they move things a little bit towards like an imaginary, rule. It's kind of, I mean, it's
An
fucking
imaginary rule.
exactly.
Well, it was already kind of like that, right? Like it's kind of, they call it the stupid test in the NFL. Like if you fail,
Yes.
it's because you're an idiot, because literally the time you can get tested is 420, as if that wasn't a coincidence, right?
Yeah.
April 20th to the end of OTAs, and then the first 2 weeks of camp are the only times you can get tested.
You just sounded like Chris D'Elia.
Well, don't say that, because we actually have a huge issue on this podcast.
We're trying to move
We're
him
stealing
away from
his
the
stuff.
Chris
We
D'Elia
steal it
bits.
all the time.
Oh, do you?
Yes, dude, it's bad.
Wait,
We can literally, we can get sued so bad.
idiot.
We can get sued so fast.
Dude, so stupid, dude. He just sits up in his chair.
Congratulations Pod Instagram page is awesome. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that here, but I guess my thing is, the more you normalize it, it's not a big deal. I don't profess for it to be a big deal. I would say to a fan who's looking at me crazy, like, you're making it a big deal. Literally, it is not a big deal. And, all these things that, you would think you were praising me for charitable contributions, Walter Payton Man of the Year, all that shit, whatever. You think I'm some angel, and I am an angel. I am an angel that smokes the devil's lettuce. It makes no difference. Like, you can do all these great things in life, and you can do bad things in life too. It's not your character. And the thing that annoyed me, my biggest pet peeve out of that whole thing, was not people that called me some degenerate. It was people that thought they were like my boys all of a sudden, because they know exactly who I am because I smoke weed. Or like everything I'm doing now, they're like, oh, well, you're high. Let's meet and smoke a J. I'm like, dude, like my entire life doesn't revolve around that. It's something that I do. It's a part of my life, but it's not much more of a part. Well, it's a bigger part than Breyer's vanilla ice cream. But I was going to say, like, it's not a bigger part than ice cream. Like, you're not judging me because I eat ice cream. That's not character altering. It's not a big deal.
I think in like a decade, we're going to look back at this time and we're like, we were so stupid just caring about it.
Bunch of morons. It was like the people in Prohibition. The people in Prohibition were way smarter. Alcohol wrecks lives. And I'm not saying that we should stop drinking, because I am completely, I got cognitive dissonance, or whatever smart people call it, where I'm not sure what to think about booze. I mean, like, I would never want it to go away. And I know it's extremely harmful and has ruined, my life could be 20% more productive and better, but I like being drunk sometimes. But marijuana, there's just not that, there's not that element.
Yeah, well, I feel like you're not, like, for people to think that you weren't smoking weed and just look at the background of your room, like, Jesus Christ, my friend, like, it's the greenest damn thing I've ever seen in my life.
This is a new room. This is where the devil's lettuce is really taking a hold of me.
You probably got a grow right behind your camera right now. You're probably staring at it.
You can't say that.
Hey, when was your first time? When was the first time you lit it? When was the first time you smoked?
Honestly, like, I'm not one of those people that started in like high school. It was in college. It was Boise, Idaho. It was Boise, Idaho.
And he's smiling. It must be a story.
There wasn't much of a story. We went out and got some 40 ounces, and we watched Bring It On, and I got stuck. I'm like stuck on the couch, Gabrielle Union, whoever else is in that movie, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this movie? And why can't I move? And that was the first time. And honestly, for me, it was, I went through phases in my career, because there were some people that told me, like, it's bad for your testosterone, or it's bad for like your whatever. And I would try to experiment with like stopping and whatever. But there was a period in my career where I was popping sleeping pills. And you know how easy you can get pills in the NFL. I was popping sleeping pills in a bad way. I mean, Lunesta, just eating them. And
oh, really?
And that was altering kind of my mood and my personality. There's some bad rebound shit on stuff like that. And also the anxiety with, like, I can't sleep without a pill. That's terrible. And a lot of people go down that road, and it sucks. And, probably the best day of my life from a health standpoint was getting rid of those Lunestas and those sleeping pills, and not having to use that stuff anymore, and finding a good strain. Because, like, back in the day, you just smoked whatever you could get, Reggie Miller, whatever it was. And then, like, at a point in my career, things got more specialized, because, dispensaries opened and people had specific strains, and people all of a sudden were snobby about it. Or maybe it was like that in the 80s and 90s and I didn't know it, but I grew up to where I could get, like, okay, this is an indica. This is going to put me down like an elephant trank gun. And that changed my life.
Yo, that's funny. When did
sorry, the bean just walked up on me. he was like,
What is that?
that's my daughter. She's 2. She's turning 3 soon. That's literally, she's like talking, but she's also like doing like she just still does like Gabby, like the Gabby thing. What's up,
Oh yeah. I like that.
It sounds like one of those minions. And I'm like, hey, can you go see your mom, please? Daddy's trying to talk to a man about marijuana right now. Can you please? Daddy's trying to talk about marijuana.
Trying to talk to a man about marijuana right now.
Avert your eyes. You're gonna get addicted to marijuana through the screen.
Oh man, avert your eyes. When please go in the other room, watch Paw Patrol.
Mm-hmm. Paw Patrol. By the way, you hear they're coming out with a new character this summer.
Are they really?
Got to pay more attention when you got that background noise on, player.
That's big time, baby. That's big time. I got to get on that because I'm looking for, July 5th is her birthday. I got to look for birthday gifts, and Mom doesn't even know about that. So I'm gonna be on.
Maybe get her the new Paw Patrol character. It's gonna be the hottest thing out. It's gonna be like the Furbies were.
Hey, Furbies were a big deal.
Furbies took the world by storm. Furbies were the 2000s version of the Cabbage Patch Kids.
No question.
They were elite, and they had like a 10-year run. I feel like.
Furbies didn't have a TV show though. I would say that Pokemon, like that era.
Yeah.
That's what I was about.
Ash Ketchum, Pikachu. Like for me, I was out there wheeling and dealing them cards. Kid? Huge Pokemon kid. Huge.
I was big generational or something, and I just missed the boat.
Well,
what were you? Were you
Chris, to be fair, you're a lot older than us.
Yeah, it's true, and I forget that sometimes.
How old are you?
35.
Oh my God! Hey, start thinking this.
You got 5 years on me.
Huh?
Taylor, what are you? 28.
Yeah. I don't like to talk about my age on camera, but yeah,
20, especially because you're in your 20s, and that's like the worst time of your life.
The 20s?
30s are so much better, dude. I swear.
I'm a firm believer that once you hit 30, you might as well just be a ghost. Like you're a spirit.
You might as well be dead. I used to be the most fatalistic. Like I approach life like every day I think about dying of old age. Like I'm like my time's running out. I got to do more shit. I'm running out of time. Like I needed to tack this, like, and then I sleep in and take a nap. But I had that general attitude.
Marijuana.
And it's because life's short. And when I was in my 20s, I thought the same way as you, but I turned 30 and my life got more peaceful. You kind of calm down. I used to be just like a wild dog, and it's not the worst thing to be a little bit domesticated and enjoy your life and slow things down and realize you don't have to be out 100 miles an hour, in your life all the time. Having kids slowed me down. Like, having my 2 kids and, being a dad now, you realize all of a sudden you're like, okay, this is what was missing my entire 20s. I was like overcompensating for something. Like I'm chasing something in my life, like an achievement, or whether it was football or whatever your job is. Like keeping your kids happy is all that fucking matters now, and having a great podcast.
That is a very important point at the end there. I think for me, I agree with you a lot. I think when I was early 20s, like I was in college, like the only thing that mattered was getting that dub on Saturday and how much booze can I drink between Saturday night and Friday. You know what I'm saying? I cut it off Thursday because I was a pro then.
And getting them rocks off.
Yeah, no question. Like that came with the drinking. Like you just got to get like literally like that was how I was wired. I was like, I'm chasing girls. I'm drinking beer, whatever. And then you think that's it. Like I just want to do this and have fun and lift weights. And I was definitely a meathead. And the older I get, like my biggest anxiety now is realizing that there's so much to do in this world. There's so much there's so many lives you can live. There's so many things you can experience. And I almost have anxiety of, what if I'm not doing enough? Yeah. I do a podcast. I do business stuff. I obviously football is my number one, my main thing as far as like from a business standpoint. I have a family. I have a daughter. I have a kid on the way. But it's like a lot of times I lay in bed at night. The things that do keep me up is like, what aren't I doing that I could be experiencing that could be more like.
Yeah, how slow. And you're reading like everybody's regrets. If you Google dying regrets, there's like 5 and you're like, fuck, I'm going to regret that one.
Yeah.
I'm walking right into the trap. But like, I'm going to tell you a quick one that illustrates this, I think, is, right before we had kids, and I used to be deathly afraid of having kids, responsibility, the codependence, like all of a sudden I'm not independent. I'm so independent. And my wife knows this. We've been together since college. Meg, she's awesome. She was very patient with me coming to grips with being an adult and like being ready to have a kid. But we also wanted to wait a while because I didn't want my dad was a football player. It kind of sucks when your dad's like stressed all the time and at work. And like, I didn't want to have to, my dad told me, he's like, you want to enjoy your kids. So, right before we had kids, I said to Meg, I said, all right, well, if we're going to do this, you got to promise me 2 things. You're going to let me climb Everest and I got to do the entire app trail. You can like bring the kids at night, like to see me and like follow me on the trail. How unrealistic was this? And I guess she just knew I was a total moron and was like, yep, you got it. Like, that's fine. She must have had foresight, because the minute, Waylon showed up 4 years ago, my risk aversion, became much different. And like, I don't think about things like that anymore. Like, I start thinking about shit that when I used to do things that were risky, like, if I'm on a river and I'm drunk and I'm doing something sketchy, or like if I have some sketchy goal, I used to want to paraglide off Kilimanjaro. Like, I don't think I'm going to do that anymore, because now the thought is like, I'm not just ruining my life, I'm ruining my kids' lives. And that's 30s for you. I mean, like, it just naturally happens. You don't even have to worry about it. Stop worrying, man.
You excited to be 30 now, Taylor?
No. I think
it's a great club, dude. I'm glad. It's nice to have this. He explains it well, because anytime Taylor like traps me, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna die soon. I just come.
You're not gonna die. One day they're gonna put you in a box and possibly slide you into a fireball or just bury you underground. But like, that's not for another. Well, you play in the NFL, so average age is in the 60s. You're about halfway there.
See,
that's good. I'm glad.
So just to go with my point of being 30, the minute you hit 30, you're every day closer to death. Like, you're like more than halfway. Like, when you hit 25, every day you're closer to 30. You know what I'm saying? Like,
anytime we're talking a lot about curves right now. Okay. Anytime the curve is flattened and age flattens the curve on your potential, and like your life is like this on the back end of whatever your apex is. For football players, it might be 23. The next 50 years is all downhill. You are literally dying every day. So get moving, but also realize that life is just going to settle you the fuck down in your 30s. You don't have a choice. You're going to be sitting on the couch like, I wish I was more driven like I was in my 20s. You're just not. And you get tired of shit. That's like part of why I retired. I got tired of stupid shit, and my threshold for stuff that I wasn't enjoying sometimes was just like, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm smart. I'm old.
The thing about like being in your 30s and stuff that you talk about, like, I used to want to do this and that, and now I don't. I am that way right now. There's a lot of things that, skydiving, I'll do that. I watch Travis Pastrana and the boys in squirrel suits jumping on a plane.
Yeah, I never want to do that.
No question. I would absolutely, like, in my head, I'm like, I would do that. And I remember saying that to my wife when I first met her. I was like, I want to do this.
Man, you can hit that pole so hard. Dong.
Yeah, done though. But the thing is, it's like boom.
Yeah.
Out of there. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, there's not, like, that was my mindset, is like, well, it kind of still is, unfortunately. Like, I always think like, what I need to do everything. I need to see everything and all that. And maybe when I hit my 30s, it'll change. But, being a parent definitely does put things more into perspective for you, which has really done that for me. But like, at the same time, I do have that, daredevil mentality or whatever it is that you kind of want to do and experience new things, like flying planes.
You're still in your physical prime. You're still playing good ball. Like, you're 28. You're not old. A lineman played till they're like 50. And also, like, you don't really come to grips with aging until your body starts changing from a football perspective, because that's how you've defined your mortality for your entire life and your career now. So like, the minute you start noticing that things are a little bit different, you're going to start thinking about like, oh, I'll never feel as athletic as I did last year. I'll never be as good physically as I was last year. The first day of camp, when they tell you this is the best you're going to feel all year, all the guys walk in and like, what's up, rookie? How you feeling today? You're like, I feel great. You're like, never again. And you're like, fuck. That's like, that's when you have that realization. It's not training camp. It's the rest of your life. So, you get wiser. Life kicks your ass, man. You can't beat it.
Yeah, that is going to be a thing when I wake up one day and I feel like, oh, I'm actually either leveling off or going down. You know what I'm saying?
Can still play.
Curve flattens, dude. That curve flattens.
See, but like, the thing is, there's so many new things that come out every single year, like NAD, like ozone, like vitamin bags, like
sex robots.
All that stuff. Women don't need us anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all going to work out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was listening to Joe Rogan's podcast the other day, and he was talking about with Elon Musk, and he was literally saying like, Elon Musk is 5 to 10 years away from not even having to communicate via like using your mouth. Like, you and I could sit there like this.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, you think about it, and I'm very I was talking about this on the pod last night, because I was talking about the Terminator fight with T-1000 where he knocks him in the lava. I watched that movie far too early in my life. Like my parents didn't have parental controls on the TV. I was saying, I think like I was all Arnold movies at like 4, and I think that's why I'm so afraid of robots. And you can call me what you want. You can call me like not progressive on robotics or automation, like, but they are going to crush people's jobs, and eventually they're going to get smart enough where they realize that we're just in the way. Like there's no passion or emotion with robots. They're just going to one day wake up in their robot beds and they're going to say, fuck these people. We don't need them anymore. And we're all going to die.
I think we'll be very dead. We'll be dead for sure before robots are waking up and going to sleep in beds.
We will be. But in the next 15, 20 years, you know the anxiety you feel when you realize you've been on your phone for 6 hours in a day?
Yes.
You're going to effectively become a phone.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they enjoy podcasts and we'll have value. They won't kill us. You know what I'm saying?
Floor right now.
Yeah, hey, I enjoy Bussin' with the Boys in Greenlight. Let's not fucking kill those humans.
Yeah, no, let's not kill them. We like podcasts, but also like imagine if they put that chip in you, like you're not ever going to have to pick the phone up. You're going to be on the phone all day. When you don't have to learn anything anymore and go through that process and you can flip a switch and gain knowledge, that's going to be fucking crazy. It's scary.
Are we past the point of AI? Like from an artificial intelligence standpoint, do you think we're already too advanced? Like there's no going back from here, or there's still a point in your mind for your Terminator safety where you think, oh, we could stop here and be okay?
I think that the problem with people is they don't know where the point of diminishing return is. Like, listen, there's certain jobs that would be improved and should be eradicated because of robotics. Like some dangerous job, like a coal miner in a country where the safety standards aren't great or it's really sketchy or something like that. Like some dangerous ass job that people really don't want to do. But the problem is, like, it's like right now there's this company up in Syracuse that came out with this drone that's going to help out this fall and clean stadiums. And they're going to spray hand sanitizer just for this fall, though. It's not just for this fall. We're going to come in, we're going to clean some stadiums. By the way, it doesn't matter if the stadium doesn't have COVID in it. It's the people I'm worried about, not the seat. You know, like, so it doesn't matter. But like after this passes, what's going to happen? They're going to say, oh, we can clean every stadium with drones. How many janitors are losing their jobs? How many people that clean stadiums are losing jobs? That's just a little example, but that stuff goes and goes and goes. And
great example.
People who are bottom line interested are only interested in that, and they don't know where the point of diminishing return is. And I think eventually it gets out of control.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos is fucking us right now. That's what you're saying.
He's all those motherfuckers, dude. I can't say Jeff Bezos because I feel like
because he's listening right now.
Delay my order.
He's one of our many.
He's listening.
I'm ready to fight for freedom, but not at that cost.
Yeah, dude, I tell you what, man. That man. Remember when Amazon came out though? It was like, I'm pretty sure it was like a tablet, like a Fire tablet. It was like Amazon Fire.
And you just got books, right?
It was just books.
Yeah.
It was just books. And now it's like they're testing drones to do faster drop off. I got fucking Amazon boxes outside my door every single day. I don't even know if we ordered them. But I tell you what, when I opened that damn box, I knew I needed it.
You wait a day to open the box because of the germs?
No, I don't do that. I should.
He wipes them down. He's got little disinfectant wipes. He's got to wipe them
I'm
down.
a germaphobe, bro.
Are you fully believe in COVID? Are you like the numbers are real, everything's real?
Do. I understand the economy piece of it. I'm not going to thumb my nose at people who are worried about getting back to work, but it's just how you're expressing that. Like if you're going to work out outside of a gym because you think you're being oppressed and wave like American flags and shit. Like I just think it's a little bit overboard, and that's not a liberty. You can get swollen a 6x8. Like why are you down there in Florida? It's very Florida. You know, doing CrossFit outside of a gym, proving that you don't need a gym to exercise. Like it's just, what are we doing? Like this is unprecedented. Listen, has it been exaggerated at times? Sure. But it's also a fucking pandemic that's a novel virus and we don't have immunity to it. So like, what's the worst thing about waiting it out a little bit? I know that we're all very lucky, the 3 guys on this call, we can work from home, we have means. I'm not minimizing that, but I'm certainly a believer in COVID. Like we've lost tens and tens of thousands of lives in the United States. And it's extremely sad. And it's hard because there is this like mental struggle of like, I know that if I'm younger, I'm probably not going to die for it, especially like people who are under 23. colleges coming back in the fall. Some people are like, it's so stupid that they're talking about not opening colleges, but there's a flip side to that. I live in Charlottesville. There's not a ton of cases here, but if 15,000 students from all over the Eastern Seaboard come back in the fall, it's going to be like a matchstick, and that second surge is what I'm worried about.
All right, let's shift gears, because I think we've it's probably been like 70 minutes.
Yeah, we're good.
I want you to talk about chalk. I want you to talk about chalk media. I want to know why it started. You probably saw my notes. I cussed myself out. Like, don't settle for a boring answer. Like, I want to fucking know. You're sitting there. You flatline. You're now, like you were saying it earlier, you're feeling your body. So you're having a conversation with yourself. Like, okay, I'm going to start transitioning. Here's what it's going to look like for me.
Well, what do we do a lot of the time in the NFL? We bullshit. I mean, that's what we do for a living. Like, we play football, we hit people, but we bullshit with each other. And people in the locker room have the most interesting, unfiltered conversations. You talk about Twitter and people getting offended. Nobody gets offended in the NFL locker room. Like, there's some hard conversations had because you trust people. That's another thing about the conversation we were just having. You know, I guarantee you, if you know somebody personally who has a difference of opinion, that conversation is going to go differently than with a stranger. And that's the beauty of an NFL locker room. That's why, like, we're all ready to just bullshit for hours. So my last couple of years, I'm sitting there and I'm just saying, you know, what do I want to do when I get out? Because I was terrified of retirement. I was terrified. Like, I was terrified of sitting still. I'm like you, Taylor, talking about, you know, it looks like death to me. Retirement looked like imminent death. And the way they make it sound, you're going to lose your mind in 5 years. You're going to hate yourself, because they never tell the good stories. So I'm scrambling my brain trying to figure out, well, it's already scrambled. Let some people tell it. But I'm scrambling my brain trying to think about what I might do. And I'm thinking, I would love to take these conversations, you know, and make it my job. It's almost unfair to have this job. It's fun. It's hard work. That's what I'm realizing, but it's something I look forward to doing, talking to interesting people and ranking shit, you know, talking about whatever I want to talk about. And that's the nice thing about going it alone. You were asking me about that, Will. Like, my pod is Greenlight Pod. We got some listeners, whatever. Like, I don't keep track of that shit for the most part, honestly, the numbers, whatever, because I don't think sometimes popularity is necessarily a good thing. Depends on who's listening. You know, like, if a bunch of people you don't want to listen are listening, like, it's not a big deal. And also, we talked about the rat race thing. Well, once you get in the media, everybody's starved for attention. Everybody wants, everybody's racing to the same lead or trying to get ahead. And I just approach this thing like, hey, I do 3 pods a week. It keeps me busy. I love it. It's something to answer to. And I'm interested by people and topics, and it's fun, man. I love it.
Dude, until 2 a.m.? You were up until 2 a.m. last night? Like, that's
I was
how
up
much you
until
enjoy
2 a.m. because I had a buddy on that got a little tipsy, and I didn't want to use all of it without his permission. And it was, you know, it's one of those things where you're going to ask your friend and be like, hey, you good with all that? But, like, at 11, you think he's more sober than he was at 9.
Yeah.
So I waited till the morning and I redid the pod. But yeah, I mean, I was up till 2 a.m. I'm definitely a night owl with it. I don't know if you guys usually record around now, but I'm kind of a night owl with it.
Do you wish you did more when you were playing? Like, from a media standpoint, like this, like doing a podcast? Because for me, that was my biggest fear going into it. Will was the one that sat me down. I was like, I want to do this. Will, knowing he's like towards the end of his career, his words, not mine. I'm not trying to throw shit at the boy.
Jesus.
And he wanted to put this thing.
The boy said, he said, I'm running out of time. Help me launch my career.
I was like, all right, Will, jump on my back. Let's get this thing going, dude.
Hey, don't get it gray, dude. It was, oh, you're gonna do this thing? I want to do it with you. I'm like, thank God.
Well, and but there was a lot of being nervous, like putting yourself out there every single week. If you don't have a good game, and a podcast comes out, people are like, well, what the fuck are you doing doing a podcast when you should be watching film? And that's a lot of the reason why we do a lot before the season. I don't do podcasts during the season, but was there ever a time for you that you were like, you know, like now looking back, maybe I should have done something more like this while I was playing?
No, honestly, because I'm like you with my concerns for the minute you don't make a play. And the hardest thing about being a defensive end is the one thing they measure you on is sacks. Like, right. And a lot of that is dependent on things around you. So
no doubt.
I can't necessarily control my career year. You know, it depends on the back end. It depends on the time you have, the guys rushing next to you. It's a team sport. So, like, you could work your ass off and have a goose egg on a Sunday and rush really well. And I don't want to be on that Sunday, you know, coming in after a loss where you got a goose egg and you're in there on Monday and you got to talk about stuff and look like you're having fun and take it down. Everybody has enough time to do one podcast a week in the NFL. Like, we work our asses off, but like there's time in there.
Right.
So doing it is not like some big distraction. It's just, can you handle the bullshit? And I didn't want to deal with that bullshit of people, connecting stupid dots, which I'm sure you've dealt with a little bit, and it's probably not easy.
Yeah, I mean, going through this year was definitely tough. The issue I had is I got suspended, right? So I get suspended, and then I was doing podcasts during my suspension because it's like, well, what else I'm going to do? I'm working out. Like, you can only work out so much in a day. You can only do so much in a day. So it's like people who are sitting and doing their 9-to-5 job. Like, it's not like I'm out sitting there at 6:30 tweeting at them, going, "Hey, why aren't you working on the TPS report, asshole? You should be doing a little bit more."
Hey, Milton. Hey, like, here's the deal. The funniest thing is, and this is down the line of what we're talking about. You go out to a game on a Saturday night, and you go on a road trip. Guess who's sitting in the room like choir boys and waiting for bed check? The players. Who's out there eating dinner with their wives, taking a bus to like some nice steakhouse? All the coaches. Mm-hmm. The coaches are the ones who actually have to be studying. The hay is in the barn for players by Saturday night.
Oh yeah.
And so like it's that double standard of, I got to sit in my house like like a church mouse. And, that standard is not there for coaches, it's not there for other executives, it's not there for other professions, because people think they kind of own players. And if I see you doing something with your time that I don't like, especially if you're speaking your mind, like, yeah, nah. And I just knew, like, the way my filter is, it wouldn't have gone well. And I got annoyed towards the end of my career, quite honestly, because I was speaking on things that I was passionate about, that my quotes would blow up and get taken out of context, or would just blow up as if I'm self-important. Like, everybody has a Twitter. If I tweet something about criminal justice reform and somebody finds it noteworthy and they tweet it, then all of a sudden I'm looking for attention. Well, imagine if I had a fucking podcast, because my podcast wouldn't be vanilla and it would make waves, because I don't give a fuck. I say what I want.
Right. It's that dash. It's that teaspoon, my baby.
Yeah,
that's that little teaspoon, dude.
You got that little teaspoon there, bro. You got a whole cup. You got a half cup in that thing.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
No, I get it, dude. It's tough. The thing that is,
I might have lost Taylor with that answer, but go ahead. Hey, Taylor's like, hey, Will, let's have a conversation. I want to redo this season. I'm just kidding.
Okay. The thing that's so difficult for people to understand about being an NFL football player is not even just an NFL football player, any sport in general. The shit is hard. It's hard physically, but the mentally, that is what makes, because everybody has got so much talent. Like, some guys have more talent than others, but everybody's got a lot of talent.
You're right. We had this whole conversation.
We had that conversation.
Hey, did my wingspan or my athleticism?
Dude, your genetics, man, they're different, bro. But anyway,
the
go ahead.
Long family, dude. The Long family.
You just basically, it's just easy. I mean, you're a white guy with short arms in the NFL. How easy could it be?
That button press. Get that button press right.
Yeah, Patrick Willis didn't have any genetics.
I know, right?
Well, he didn't have any genetics. He had to, he just worked way harder.
I'll tell you what. But anyway, the mental part of everything is something that people overlook all the time. How difficult it is to go every single week and keep a consistent trend of playing consistent and doing well and trying to get stats from a defensive lineman. That shit would be so hard to go a couple games without a sack and then be like, "Fuck, how do I get myself out of this rut?"
It's like a baseball player slump, bro.
I was thinking the same thing.
I used to change like things around, mentally, like OCD person territory, just to like try to get sacks. That had nothing to do with football. I was rethinking like what side of the bed I slept on. I was like, not Joe Boo level shit in Major League, but it's hard. And if I was in one of those slumps and I had to do a podcast, it would just be bad news, man. And I'm anxious anyways. Like, I'm just high strung. That would have added a lot of bullshit to my life.
No, I'm with that. I agree 100%.
This year.
You said what?
Enjoy the podcast this year. I can hear it now. You guys lose one game in fucking October. Your podcast is all of a sudden going to become a distraction. Does Taylor Lewan?
It's already happened. It's already happened. When I was not on a team and the Titans would lose, I would honestly get anxiety. Even though I wasn't even on a team, I'd be like, "Fuck, it's a tough week. It's going to be a tough week." And I see the boy, he gets a holding penalty. I'm yelling at the fucking TV. God damn it. My podcast, Taylor, the podcast.
the boy is accountable. The boy is accountable in his games. By the way, this is the funniest thing in the world. I used to fucking hate y'all, the Titans.
Sure.
And it wasn't like for
I'm
any
glad you clarified the Titans. I thought it was me.
I just could not stand the Titans. I think it was because Chris Johnson torched us like early in my career, and it just, Folsom Prison, which I love, they just played it 5,700 times at Nissan, which is awesome. And it's one of those places, it's kind of like, to me, West Virginia football, I wish I had experienced it as a player somehow. I wish I lived two lives. It just seemed like they had something cool going on there. And I grew to really love what y'all have going on in Nashville. And last year, I think the key was a guy that I used to could not stand, Ryan Tannehill. So the guy I couldn't stand comes to Nashville, injects all this fucking energy into it. A team that I hate and a guy that I hate, they joined together to make me love a team. I was betting the house on you fuckers at the end of the year.
Dude,
Nashville hater to Titans fanboy. Bro, I was riding with y'all all the way.
I love it, dude. Everyone loves that kind of story, right? No one wants to see the Patriots win or like the teams that always win.
Yeah.
You got a team like the Titans coming in, and everybody sleeps on the Titans. That's the craziest thing. I mean, for understanding, like when I first got there in 2014.
He says the craziest thing. I mean, there's,
and then I'm like kind of like my head, like, well, it's not that crazy because
wait till
you guys were 9-7.
Wait till you hear Patriots fans saying they're being slept on this year. You're gonna be like, that's the crazy.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
right?
They've got a point though. Like if they're getting slept on, because like people thinking that Tom Brady is leaving. Half the people are going to think, oh, they're done, dynasty's over, and the other half are the Boston hardos that are like, doesn't matter. We got Belichick. We're
wouldn't
good.
It be fair? I'm not going to lead you down a road, okay?
I'll go. Hey, I will take this drive. With
this is not green light. This is not green light.
I think it's fair, and any other team has to deal with that lowering of expectations when a Hall of Fame quarterback matriculates to another team or retirement. Like that's the way things are. And when you have an unproven 4th round pick and an offense that didn't have a lot of weapons, you had a defense that towards the end of the year got exposed a little bit. Listen, great defense, but not the defense that were making it seem like, to me. And, as far as stopping the run, that's why I knew when you guys played them, I was like, oh yeah. Bang it. Let me get on my little website. Bang it. Let's go. Throw a catfish on them, Tay.
Let's go, baby.
Run them over, baby. Like these are my boys, man. I'm a big Titans fan, but like,
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it was Vrabel, your boy. He's a legend. Tannehill.
What makes? I don't disagree with you on Vrabel, but what makes Vrabel a legend from an outside looking in?
Well, one, I respect him because he's a player, and most players don't get burned coaching. So he's very lucky to come from the Belichick tree. I'm not saying he's lucky, but I'm saying like a lot of coaches don't get that front of the line treatment. He deserved to get it. He's proven he deserved to get it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about it is like everybody was waiting for him to fail because he came from the Bill tree. He just got the job because he's Bill's guy. He's a player. He's too young, whatever. And he really relates to players. You can tell. He seems like a guy's guy. From everything I hear about guys that play with him in New England, he just has the right amount of shit to him, and he's a WDE essentially. I mean, like he's a great white pass rusher from back in the day. Like there's very few of us left, and so I got a soft spot for Vrabes.
No, I love it. No, Vrabes definitely. He's a guy's guy, man. He's about the boys. He comes on the podcast. Like when I did this podcast, I was thinking when he came on the podcast, I was like, okay, like I get Vrabes is definitely a boy because I was worried at first when we did this thing because John came from the Patriots tree. Vrabel's, they both essentially like they were there at one point, and I'm thinking to myself, my ass is getting traded before week 8, before that deadline.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen,
for this fucking podcast
for Vrabel to come on was super cool.
No, I would be worried, but the thing I like about it again is he breaks that mold, and the same thing with B-Flow. There's nothing wrong with the Patriot way. There's nothing wrong with, but all these coaches try to be Bill to a degree. Like they can't escape it. Somehow Braves or B-Flow, these guys, they're like, I'm going to be a little different. I'm going to bring some of the New England to wherever I'm going to coach. Mm-hmm. And that's a great thing because they know how to win up there. But I can be personality-wise a little different, and I think that's what's cool about it. Plus, you added I like your tight end, Jonnu Smith. He's a stud. He could block. I was old when we played you guys a year or two ago. But I was like, man, I really – he's a good blocker.
Insurance policy.
Breakout year. Huh?
That's an insurance policy. I was a little older when I played you guys. Yeah. So, Jonnu Smith, great job, Jonnu.
By the way, terrible comeback. That ruined my whole week at least. You guys came back from like 20 down to beat us. But
I tell you what, actually, I wanted to bring this up because I told you we were in the middle of a drive. It was the drive we won, actually. And I go past you, and I go, I don't know if you remember this, but I pat you on the ass. I go, Chris, we win this game, I'll donate $10,000 to Waterboy.
You did tell me.
I did say that. Haven't wrote a check yet.
Yeah,
haven't wrote a check yet.
Abe Lincoln here. I appreciate that check.
Hey, I'll send it. I swear to God, I'll send it. I gotta wait. I gotta make sure we got a season first because Daddy's got some debt. But we're gonna make sure.
You gotta worry about the season a little bit, honestly.
Hey guys, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I dropped a pick that game that made you guys settle for a field goal, and then we won the next drive. The boy was in the game and made some special plays.
He was
butterfly effect. My problem was I really like Conklin. You could get him off his feet and like he'd move like 8 feet, but he would just anchor enough at the last second. And also, we were in all these like fucked up rush situations. You guys do a really good job of like complimentary football and just staying like at it and being like methodical. And that really throws rushers off, you know, because you're off balance and you're just saying it's not like from a stance of you're going to get knocked off the ball in the run game, but when the pass shows and you're rushing an athletic quarterback, you had Marcus and now you got Tannehill. It's a challenge. You guys got a nice little offense there, and I love that receiver. Brown.
Yeah, he's a stud.
Ooh, he's a dog.
He's got that asshole in him too. Like he's got that attitude where it's like, give me the fucking ball. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I like.
So it's like, you know, some guys might not like that. You need guys like that, dude. You need guys that are like a little cocky, a little arrogant, and I mean that in a good way. I hope he hears this, and I hope he knows I mean it as a compliment.
Headline, breaking news.
Yeah. Taylor one, all his players arrogant and cocky. Also, Chris Long hates Ryan Tannehill.
Hey, it's a picture of AJ with those what is it, those sunglasses?
Dolce and Gabbana.
Yeah, the Dolce and Gabbana. I didn't want to butcher that name. I almost tried.
I got to go down and eat dinner with the kids. I just realized it's 6:37 p.m.
Yeah, we've been on this thing a while. I wanted to get the favorite team, favorite year, favorite like stories. We didn't fucking get to it.
Favorite year, 2012, St. Louis Rams. This is when you guys were babies. The NFL, you know, they say it was different. It was even different 8 years ago. I mean, like it was fun. Our NFC West was San Francisco with Frank Gore, Vernon Davis, Delaney Walker, Ayupati, Goodwin, fucking Anthony Davis, Staley. It was just a fucking bloodbath. And it was Seattle, Marshawn, Tom Cable O-line. Arizona had Carson Palmer. Like it was the NFC West was murderer's row. And we were that team that couldn't get over the hump, but we beat the fuck out of everybody in our division and nobody wanted to see us. But it was fun. Like we had a really good locker room. Jeff Fisher's a great coach. You guys have had Fish on. He made everything fun.
Love you, by the way.
Play for him. I know we didn't get over the hump, but I think Fish gets a bad rap.
Yeah, Fish is great.
He's the
Fish
man.
is definitely good. All right, let the man go. Let the man go.
We'll have him on. He can be a recurring guest.
When this whole pandemic thing is over, you need to come on the bus.
I will come on the bus.
I've tried getting him to Nashville quite a bit.
I love Nashville. You know, as you just heard, you don't have to twist my arm. I might come put a Titans jersey on.
Hey, seven zone, baby.
You know what?
Hey, are we competitors?
Get the drone, like a sanitizer drone in the bus. I'm there.
But done.
We got you.
All right,
hey, are we competitors?
We are not competitors because of what I said earlier. Like, you guys probably don't compete with anybody. I don't compete with anybody. Like, because competing with somebody, that would mean like, if I'm doing what I truly want to do as a podcast, and this is a serious answer, but like, then if I'm not getting listeners, that means I have to change who I am. So I'm going to do what I need to do to enjoy it. And if people like it, great. If they don't, fuck it. Like there's enough podcasts in the world for everybody. I'm pretty sure everybody has a podcast now.
That is true, man.
But you guys are rolling, man. I appreciate you guys having me on. You guys we'll do a home and home. You got to come on mine. We'll rank some shit. I don't think anybody else has ranked anything over quarantine.
I'll rank.
We'll do it.
Down to rank.
Down to D2R, S2R, send or receive.
Let's do it.
All right, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Okay. See you.